Sei Takanashi is a 20-something office worker with no social life. One evening, just as she gets home from work, she's engulfed by a bright light and transported to another world. There, she sees another girl, Ada Misono, a high school student, both summoned by a group of mages. The mages explain that they need a saint to purify the miasma that is plaguing their kingdom. However, they only acknowledge Ada as the saint and ignore Sei completely. The prince, Kyle Slantania, takes Ada away to the royal palace and leaves Sei behind with no explanation. Sei is confused by the rejection, but decides to make the best of her situation. She explores the palace grounds and finds a garden full of lavender. She meets Jude, a friendly researcher who works at the Institute of Medicinal Plants. He invites her to join him at his workplace and shows her how they use magic and herbs to create health potions. Sei reveals her knowledge of plants and chemistry and decides to work as a researcher, learning some magic from Jude. Sei proves to be an exceptional potion maker. Her magic infused in the potions increases their effectiveness by 50%. One day, a group of knights returns from an expedition, severely wounded by a fire-breathing lizard. Sei volunteers to help heal them with her enhanced potions and saves the life of the commander of the Third Order of Knights, who was on the verge of death. Johann, a close friend of the commander, is grateful to Sei and notices that she has a faint light around her body. He suspects she might be the real saint. He reports this to his superior officer, who agrees that it is a possibility. The orders of knights start placing large orders for the Institute's exceptional potions, substantially increasing their revenue. The director acknowledges that this is a result of Sei's skills and asks how she would like to see some of their budget surplus spent. She asks for a kitchen in the Medicinal Flora Research Institute. The food culture in this world sucks, so she teaches the local chefs how to cook with herbs and spices. Such a novel technique. Sei is sent to deliver some documents to the Knights of the Third Order and meets Hawk, the knight she saved. He invites her to accompany the order on their next hunting expedition, where she'd be protected and allowed to gather herbs for the Institute. Kind of oblivious to the personal nature of this invitation, she brings other Institute researchers along as well. They soon find out that Sei's food has a magic-enhanced effect, similar to her potions, that boosts the abilities of those who eat it. The director tells her that she should avoid cooking in public because it might attract unwanted attention. In the library at the royal palace, Elizabeth introduces herself to Sei. They exchange pleasantries, talk books for a moment, and go on to become fast friends. Sei starts using herbs and magic to make cosmetics for herself, which improves her skin's condition and appearance, not to mention that she doesn't seem to need her glasses anymore. Jude and Liz both notice that she looks magical, way better than before. It's not that she didn't look good before, just she's exceptionally attractive now. In the library, Elizabeth goes on about how popular her cosmetics have become and comments that Sei's radiance probably has more to do with pheromones than skin creams. She's been repeatedly seen in Hawk's company, as he often insists on escorting her from the palace back to the Institute. Hawk invites Sei to go out with him on her next day off. They go to the town and visit various shops and stalls. He shows Sei his ice magic by producing ice cubes to cool her drink. In a shop, a lovely hairpin catches Sei's eye, but then she sees the price and tries to forget about it. When they return to the palace, Hawk gives Sei a gift and tells her to wait until she's home to open it. When she is, she does. And of course, it's the hairpin. Smooth. She shows Liz, who immediately divines that it was a gift, and from whom. But when she shows it to Jude, he picks up that the object is enchanted. Sei lights up at the idea that enchantment is a thing and wants to learn. A little too ambitious, on her first attempt to perform enchantment, she breaks the object of enchantment, called a focus, by trying to make an all-purpose protection charm that works on all magical affinities. But with a little guidance from the deputy director, she finds she has a knack for holy magic and can enchant things with no problem, right off the bat. Word spreads about the assembly's powerful enchantments, and the First Order of Knights places a large order. including some enchantments that the Assembly's mages aren't skilled enough to perform, but that Sei accomplished on her first day. The deputy director very formally and respectfully asks for her assistance. Sei obliges, and when he comes to pick up the enchanted foci, he asks her how she would like to be compensated. A surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. The deputy director reports to the king that he's been assessing Sei's magical power. Her enchantments are extraordinary, and only Grand Magus Yuri Drevis can appraise her magic power properly. However, Yuri is in a coma, and no one knows when he will wake up. Sei helps deliver potions to the Knights of the Third Order, and hears about an upcoming joint expedition of the Third and Second Orders, the First Order remaining conspicuously absent. She also finds out that Prince Kyle Slantania has been calling Ada, the other girl who was summoned, the true saint. Sei suspects that she herself is the real saint, but says nothing, not wanting to cause trouble. In the library, she tries to read an advanced magic book, when a gentleman points out that that book is probably a bit much for someone just starting out, and suggests one that starts with the basics. He introduces himself as Siegfried Slantania and apologizes for Kyle's rude behavior upon her arrival. She puts it together that he's the freaking king and insists that no apology is necessary. After the latest expedition, Sei heads down to the hospital to visit the recovering knights. They thank her for her potions that saved many lives. Wolf, one of their comrades, lost his arm below the elbow in battle and will be discharged from service. Pitying her friend, Sei puts her new healing magic skills to task. Apparently, she can completely restore limbs. With no other explanation, everyone accepts it as a miracle. She then heals all the other injured knights. After this, there's a lot of talk about Sei being the real saint, but all the officials are wary of jumping to conclusions before a proper appraisal. Grand Magus Yuri awakens from his coma. Wasting no time, Sei is brought to him for appraisal of her magical power to determine if she is the true saint. Sei worries about how her life there might change depending on the result. Yuri tries to appraise Sei, but his spell fails because her magic power is stronger than his. He then asks her to cast a healing spell and sees that her magic has a golden glow. He reports his findings to King Siegfried Slantania, who is shocked by the results. He compares them with Ada's appraisal, which shows that she's a fast learner, but has no golden glow, or even comes close to Sei's magical aptitude. Yuri admits that he believes Sei is the real saint. Sei receives an invitation to the palace for an audience with the king. She accepts. Hawk volunteers to be her escort and bodyguard, continuing to show his interest in her while she tries to remain aloof. At the royal palace, Sei is brought before the king in the formal reception hall. The king publicly apologizes for his poor welcome and manners. To make up for it, and to reward her for all she has done in contribution to the kingdom thus far, he offers to grant any wish. But Sei tells the king that she doesn't want any titles or honors. However, she does come up with a couple requests: access to the forbidden collection at the library and a magic teacher. The king grants both, and Yuri inserts himself as Sei's teacher. Yuri tries to size up Sei's abilities. He asks her to transfer power to him through physical contact, but she's made uncomfortable by his awkward response to perceiving that her power is of something more than just the holy affinity. Sei also practices her healing magic in a more practical way with Hawk and the Third Order during their training exercises. Sei assumes that the net result of all her training will be to accompany the knights on expeditions. Yuri agrees to accompany them as well, not only as support, but to satisfy his personal need to observe Sei's magic. When Sei is not practicing magic, she's learning how to dance and behave as a noble lady. Hawk joins her in a dance lesson and again expresses his interest in her, this time perhaps more directly, by stating that he would be honored to be her escort if she ever has to attend a formal event. Sei receives an invitation to tea from Elizabeth. It turns out that she is engaged to Prince Kyle, who still thinks that Ada is the saint. Elizabeth apologizes for Kyle's behavior and seems to think that Sei is the real saint, despite her fiancé's near obsession with Ada. In a flashback, Ada messages her mother on her way out when she's unexpectedly teleported to the kingdom of Slantania. She learns about the situation of the kingdom from Kyle's attendant, Damien, and realizes she can never return home. Struggling with her new life, Prince Kyle promises to protect her. Ada accompanies Kyle to the marketplace, where she starts picking up on the fact that Kyle, though respected, doesn't seem to be well liked. His governing style is strict, but she comes to understand that his heart is in the right place. Everything he does is for the good of the kingdom, including the summoning of the saint, both of them, and she commits to do everything she can to fulfill her role. She starts taking magic classes with Kyle and his friends, but some of the other ladies are raising an eyebrow about how much time Ada is spending at the side of a man, the prince, who has a fiancé. A couple of them try to talk to her about it, maybe a bit snarky and confrontational. Kyle perceives it as harassment, defends Ada, and chases them off. One rainy day, Ada runs into a classmate under an archway, both waiting out the rain. She almost talks to her before two of her friends arrive, each with umbrellas. They completely ignore Ada, while one offers to share her umbrella with her classmate. A moment later, Kyle's attendant arrives with an umbrella for her and feels terrible that she's gotten soaked. To put him at ease, she uses her magic to remove the water from her clothing and collect it in a little ball in the air before her. She's no Sei, but not bad. Meanwhile, Kyle learns that Sei may be the saint they've been searching for, and he's genuinely concerned about what might become of Ada if she's perceived as a useless outsider. He decides to stick to the plan. If he brashly barrels on about Ada being the saint and continues to make demands on her, she may be perceived as a victim and pitied by the community. Elizabeth tries to talk to Ada, but Kyle interrupts and puts a stop to their conversation, playing his part perfectly. Sei takes advantage of her access to the forbidden collection of the library. Grand Magus Yori sneaks up on her and tells her that he's been studying the nature of magic and found that it exists in all living things. He suggests that Sei might be able to imbue herbs with her magic and enhance their effects. Sei experiments with her holy magic, trying to find a way to make plants grow harder, better, faster, stronger. She also learns that there is a special type of magic called saintly conjuring, which has hardly any information available on it. That night, she goes outside and thoughtfully takes in the starlit sky. She reflects on her time in this world and experiences a sensation of overwhelming gratitude. She wishes to repay the kindness of everyone who's been there for her. Suddenly, she feels a surge of magic and conjures glowing orbs that disperse themselves among the plants around her. She realizes she's just imbued the herbs with her magic. The next day, she's asked to join Hawk and the Third Order on an expedition to an area infested with miasma and monsters. She agrees to go, of course, and is accompanied by Yuri. Hawk is pleased to see that Sei is wearing the protection enchanted hairpin. Deep in the forest, they engage the miasma monsters, and Hawk is severely wounded. Overwhelmed at the thought of losing him, Sei rushes to his side, heals him, and then unleashes her saintly conjuring power, creating a huge blast of light that purifies the miasma and kills all the monsters. Everyone is amazed by her power. She's looking more saintly by the day. Yori is especially amazed by Sei's ability. He bombards her with questions about her magic. Hawk intervenes, enough to signal to Yori to leave her alone. He then thanks Sei for saving his life and the lives of the others. On the palace grounds, Sei happens upon Kyle and Elizabeth arguing about his strange fixation on Ada. Kyle claims that it's his duty to protect her because he is responsible for her being summoned in the first place. Elizabeth goes on to point out the impropriety of his spending so much time with a woman who's not his fiancée, and that in the long run it'll be bad for Ada. Not to mention the inconsistency of his argument. He doesn't show any consideration whatsoever for Sei, who he is also responsible for summoning. Kyle then directly says that Sei is not the saint. Sei tries to avoid getting involved in the argument, but the folks around her notice her and start murmuring, which gets Kyle's attention. He pretends not to recognize her at first, again playing the part of complete tool perfectly. Addressing Liz, Sei respectfully suggests that their discussion might be better held in private. Kyle, outraged that Sei had even opened her mouth, raises a hand against her, but Hawk, out of nowhere, grabs him by the wrist. Before things can escalate, King Siegfried Slantania arrives and scolds Kyle for his rude behavior. Siegfried reveals that he knows that Sei is the true saint, based on Yuri's assessment as well as her deeds, and then asks what Ada has accomplished. Siegfried tells Kyle that he's been deceived by his own wishful thinking and that he has hurt both Ada and Elizabeth with his actions. He orders Kyle and Elizabeth to follow him to continue their conversation in private. In private, with Elizabeth and King Siegfried, Kyle seems to have revealed all. He admits that he too believes Sei is the real saint and assumes all responsibility for the confusion and dissonance he's sown, ready to accept any punishment. But he rather nobly requests that Ada be given free rein to live out her days as she sees fit. King Siegfried agrees, and then sentences Kyle to house arrest, along with his associates. The king then charges Ada's care to Second Prince Rain and invites Elizabeth to assist him, if she's inclined. She is. In the end, Elizabeth sees the virtue in Kyle's motives and desired outcome, but just wishes he didn't have to be such a tool to go about getting it done. Later, Ada meets Sei at a tea party hosted by Elizabeth. Ada's lived a pretty sheltered life since her arrival and isn't sure of how to move forward. Sei suggests that since she's interested in magic and has inherent talent as a mage, she should join the Royal Magi Assembly. They might even end up taking magic lessons together. Ada delights at the prospect. Monster activity is down around the capital, but the countryside is still plagued. Klausner's domain, a region that specializes in the production of medicinal herbs, requests assistance. The king authorizes Hawk and the Third Order to lend support. Sei will accompany them, not just because she's the saint and should, but also for the opportunity to learn more about herbs and alchemy from the region's specialists. Sei and Hawk arrive in Klausner's domain and are warmly greeted. Now in the alchemist's paradise, she wants to explore the possibility of developing potions that are more potent than the high-grade ones they already make. That evening at dinner, Klausner insists that at the next opportunity, he introduce her to his own in-house herbology and alchemy practitioner, the best in the region. Sei would absolutely love that. After dinner, Hawk informs her that he and the knights will be surveying the area around the city for a few days before they embark on their first excursion, leaving Sei with some time to go about her own business. The next day, Klausner himself escorts Sei to introduce her to Corina, who is overjoyed to meet the saint. Sei stays to assist with making potions and meets Leonard, a mercenary whose physique gets her attention, but his disposition, though fun, is no Hawk. Corina is also the keeper of an important book, a diary, kept secret waiting for another saint to come along. It's clear to her that Sei must read it. She discovers that the diary's writer was a saint who, during a time of famine, while praying for her ailing younger brother, she somehow summoned the power to restore the lands of Klausner's domain. The mercenaries return. Many of them are wounded, and Sei assists with her healing magic. Leonard appreciates it, but points out that the knights are worse off than they are. Sei casts Area Heal to finish up with the mercenaries and runs to the knights. She finds Hawk, unconscious, surrounded by soldiers. She fears him dead or near death, and her saintly conjuring is activated. Turns out he was more or less all right, but it was a learning moment. It dawns on her that how she feels about him is the key to accessing her unique power. The Magus is annoyed that he was left behind in the royal capital, while Hawk and his knights and Sei are off having an adventure in the countryside. Like an angry teenager, his annoyance manifests as total negligence of the duties of his office. Deputy Director Earhart tries to run him down to get him to perform said duties, when Yuri sees Ada among a small group of new students having an orientation. He interrupts the group and steals her away. He can do such things. He is the Grand Magus after all. Sei is mortified that she has to summon up her feelings for Hawk to activate her magic power. But the upside is, she now knows what she has to do. She still needs to practice more control though, and goes back to see Korina for help. During her exercises, Leo shows up and tries to recruit Sei into his group of mercenaries as a healer. Hawk, again out of nowhere, kinda jealously intervenes, informing Leo that she's with them from the capital. Leo puts it together that she's the saint and backs off. Afterwards, Hawk informs her that the scouting is complete and they will soon start proper expeditions, and Sei should be prepared to accompany them. She still hesitates to confess her feelings for him and is in no way ready to reveal what she has to do to summon her magic. Leo and the mercenaries team up with the knights in the forest for the expedition. Soon, a member of the party finds traces of slimes, a type of monster that is resistant to physical attacks and can only be killed with magic. As they continue toward the miasma swamp, they encounter more and more evidence of slimes, until they are surrounded by them, and the slimes launch an attack. They defend themselves reasonably well, but the slimes just keep on coming. Then, many slimes seem to have joined forces and amassed into a super slime, which no one is quite sure what to do about. And suddenly, a massive fire magic attack puts a quick end to it. Yuri and Ada are on the job. They greet their friends and facilitate the expedition party's escape back to town, unfortunately incinerating a large chunk of the forest in the process. Back in town, Sei gets some more practice in with Korina, who is progressively increasing the challenge of Sei's exercises. Yuri is astonished at Sei's newfound control of Saint's conjuring, and Hawk plans their next expedition. Yuri and Ada will be with them. Both Sei and Leo express their concern about the welfare of the forest, having Yuri's fire magic along. Yuri agrees to be mindful of this. Deep in the forest, things are getting hairier than last time, but the attackers attack and the healers heal, and they make their way to the miasma swamp. The sheer volume of aggressive monsters refocuses the plan. Now it's about doing everything they can to hold them off so Sei can use her Saint's conjuring to purify the swamp. Yuri does what he can to keep Sei on task, but she gets distracted by Hawk, who takes a slime attack. Hawk's then distracted by Sei being distracted, and another monster seems poised to finish him off. Yuri feels he has no other choice and makes the executive decision to light the freaking place up, which gives everyone a chance to get back on track. An injured but still active Hawk joins Sei at her side and defends her as she performs the purification. Mission accomplished, the party makes camp for the night and gets some well-deserved rest. In the light of the following day, the damage to the forest is painful to witness, most so for Leonard. Sei, ever more confident in her abilities, and with the support of direct contact with Hawk, casts her blessing and restores the forest to its former vitality and beauty. The good people of Klausner's domain are amazed and grateful for Sei's service. The Third Order and company head back to the capital. Overlooking their homeland, Sei whispers into Hawk's ear, the Saint's magic power is... Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.